So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for joining us on the third global online conference on EQ thinking or equilibrium thinking. I think all of you can see the slides being shared. Edwin, can you confirm that the slides are visible?
It is visible, sir. It is visible.
Great. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Equilibrium thinking is a concept that is born in my mind over the course of my whole lifetime. I discovered one part of the key, which you see on the screen, be at it, in the year 1981. And you can imagine what a dull mind I have, that it took me 13 years from 1981 to 1994 to discover the whole thought process, the whole thought pattern, beat it. In the year 1994, I was Superintendent of Police, Ramnath district. I just reached my office in uniform. And as I have this habit of journaling, I wrote in my journal, be at it, and combined be at, and it became beat it. Be at it, comma, beat it. And I said, wow, this is a new thought process, a new thought pattern. And that this is the first time in the history of thought that both positive, reinforcing the positive, which is be at it, and beat it, which is beating the negative, came together. So logically, people cannot think two thoughts at the same time, but in EQ thinking, for the first time, you have a thought process which enables us to think at the same time two parallel thoughts. And as we go through the presentation, you'll realize that this is a binary thought process, the world's first binary thought process. You know, the entire algorithms of computers, software is based on binary language. Binary language meaning in numerical terms, it's 0, 1. But the human mind is not a machine. But every average human mind is a supercomputer. And to access this supercomputer, the keyboard, just like the keyboard of this computer in front of me, the keyboard to the supercomputer of your mind, my mind, and every mind in the world is your own self-talk. This is not discovered by me, but this binary self-talk is what has been discovered by me, practiced, and taught to hundreds and hundreds of people from all walks of life. So it's the world's first binary thought process, a binary self-talk. Thought process is basically all about self-talk. What I am saying to you is not what is influencing you, but what you are saying to yourself about what I am saying is what is actually influencing you. That is your self-talk. So with that introduction, let me delve into the presentation proper. So here you see I've drawn something which I call the triangle of life. The base for all of us is the body, the physical. And all of us, whatever be our position in life, our age, our background, our occupation, we are also using our mind all the time. And the mind consists of the intellect, or the left brain, and the right brain, the emotional center. It also consists of the decision-making center, the will. So intellect, emotions, and will is basically the sum, which we call mind. So I wrote a Phillipism that the mind can either be a coal mine or a gold mine, depending on how you use it. EQ thinking can turn a coal mine into a gold mine. And the third dimension, which is ignored in education, in thought processes worldwide, is spirit. So this is our anatomy. We are composed of these three dimensions. So if you ignore one dimension, then it is not holistic. So a thought process should leverage on all three, not necessarily equally, but all three elements should find a place in different proportions according to the dynamic situations we face in life. Today, as the world is facing the conflagration caused by a tiny virus, which has been called COVID-19, And when the entire world is in a state of depression, even normally positive people have become depressed. I heard yesterday that a young lady, she committed suicide, even though she was known normally to be a positive person, just in the last few days. And you would have heard of the Canadian who launched on a rampage and killed as many as 18 people in Enfield about a couple of weeks ago. So the World Health Organization said in 2000 that by the year 2020, ironically they said 2020, there will be at least 40% of the world's population suffering from depression. And now with this pandemic happening, you can imagine the quantum increase that is likely to happen due to depression. And that's why I decided that every weekend, if I'm free, and if people are free and they're interested, I would have a conference on this thought process, which probably is developed just for this need of the world, to develop your mind in a positive way. So spirit, mind, and body, this is the triangle of life. And now that leads us to another triangle. Another triangle.
The slide.
You can choose to see the screen. In case you don't see, then just, it's a very simple technology. And therefore, you'll be able to pick it up. At the end of the presentation, there's no complexities. So one Infosys HR chief who attended my seminar some 10 years ago, she said, this is the first training in my life where there is zero complexity. And she felt it's a breakthrough in training, because when training becomes complex, you do not practice it. So zero complexity means 100% retention. So at the end of the training, you already know what you need to know or need to remember. Just two verbal tools: be at it, beat it. So even if you don't see the presentation, you can just get the gist from my voice. So these, don't worry about these terms like taxonomy. It's neither about tax or the economy. Basically, it's a classification of knowledge. Bloom is one who came up with this triangle. And at the base is the base function of our mind, which is to remember. Now, history is about remembering. And our education system mostly caters to only the faculty of remembrance, of memory. So we memorize things. And when I was doing a EQ thinking session many years ago in Shanghai airport for the security personnel, I asked them, what is 7 into 9? None of them could say what is 7 into 9. And they were looking for their calculators, because they had not committed to by rote the tables, which all of us Indians have learned by heart. So even if you are woken up in the sleep, you would remember 7 into 9, 63, or whatever number you ask. So memory plays a role, but the next level is understand. Now, even if you understand EQ thinking as a concept, your mind will vastly expand. Because as someone said, once an original concept enters the human mind, it will never return to its original dimensions. There will be an expansion. So an understanding grows, our mind grows, which means it will impact our intellect, our emotions, as well as our decision making. And third faculty is applied knowledge. Applied knowledge is wisdom. So EQ thinking is about moving the world from what they used to call knowledge economy to a phrase which I have uniquely coined, which is wisdom economy. We need to move ourselves, our homes, our relationships, the entire world into a wisdom economy. And that is one of the lessons this pandemic should teach the world. We need to focus not on knowledge, but on wisdom, the application of knowledge. Know a little, use a lot. That should be the principle. Then comes analyze. We need to analyze. So you move up the pyramid of knowledge, evaluate, which is judging things. You need to judge whether this cause is right. Now, an industrialist finds that suddenly he has a huge workforce and no work can be done during this lockdown. So he has to evaluate, what should I do? Should I retrench part of my labor? Whom should I retain? So he has to evaluate. And for that evaluation, all the other functions like analyze, understand, remember, apply will also be involved. But the highest pyramid, part of this pyramid is creation, creating, original thinking. And EQ thinking is about creating original thinking. It's a thought process that will enable you to tap into your own ATM or anytime motivation, anytime meditation. It is not something that I am imparting to you. Your own mind is a supercomputer. Your programming language is self-talk. Now I am only imparting to you a binary self-talk. Be at it, beat it, by which you can access the ATM within you. The problem with our mind is I shared a slide, a Philippism this morning with those of you who are on the WhatsApp group. And I said that the human mind is a wonderful toolkit, but unfortunately all the tools are locked up along with the key inside the box. And EQ thinking is the key to open the box. You need a master key once you have locked up the box with the key in it. And so it is a master key by which you can access your inner strength. So there is no need for people to be desperate. You see, industrialist in the Middle East from Kerala, he decided to take his life. He jumped off the 14th floor because his business went into loss with crude oil falling to never heard of sub-zero levels, minus prices. And he was heavily invested in that industry, and he became desperate. And we have heard the case of Cafe Day, the entrepreneur who made the Cafe Day empire. He took his own life. So that's because the thought process was deficient. You can always have a fresh start, whatever stage of life you're in. And the human mind is inventive enough to discover a solution. I was reading the story about the Tata Steel chairman. He was conducting a meeting and the worker said that there is a serious problem with the workers' toilets, that they are very dirty, unlike the executive toilets. And so the chairman asked, what are the executives responsible for hygiene? And hygiene is so important today in today's world. Sanctity is the key to sanity. And so he asked the executive, how long would you take to set it right? The hygiene in the workers' toilets. And the executive said 1 month. And the chairman said, that's too long. He sent me a carpenter tomorrow. And when the carpenter came the next day, he just asked him to change the workers' toilet board, exchange it with the executive toilet board. And they were just exchanged. And he said every 14 days, it should be again interchanged. And in just 3 days, the workers' toilets were as clean, as hygienic as the executive toilets. So problem identification requires critical thinking, while problem solution requires creative thinking. So in EQ thinking, be at it, beat it, combines the two processes of problem identification and problem solution, of critical thinking as well as creative thinking. Because it is the combination of complementary opposites. This is not said by me, this is said by a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, Niels Bohr. He said it's the swirling of opposites in the human mind that leads to creativity. And so be at it, beat it are like complementary opposites. And just like for the dynamo to generate energy, you need two types of charges, positive and negative. And that's how I arrived at the term equilibrium. I said, what to call this new thought process? And without brainstorming, in the year 1994, the term first coined by me, but today a large number of people across disciplines have borrowed it. Equilibrium thinking came into play. And the cool name for it is EQ thinking, which means you equally address the positive and equally address the negative. You're neither optimistic nor pessimistic, but you are realistic. And at the same time, you're moving towards something ideal, something better. It's all about improvement, continuous improvement. So Bloom's taxonomy is the second triangle leading up from the first triangle, which is my concept, the triangle of life, which consists of spirit, mind, and body. Now that triangle, if we are catering to all the dimensions, we will also be transcending each level in the Bloom's triangle. We'll be moving up from mere remembrance of data, mere information, to be moving up to application, to insight, which is evaluation, and then packaging things. If you repackage something, that is creativity. If you adapt some new technique, that is creativity. So you move to the highest level of the pyramid of knowledge as you practice this holistic thought process. Then we have this well-known concept of Maslow's triangle, Maslow's pyramid, or the motivation model. These are the hierarchy of needs. We all have these basic needs, physiological needs of hunger, thirst, the sex drive, safety needs, the need to be safe, to be secure. And that's what is driving the entire world to take this decision, never thought of decision of total lockdown of 1.3 billion people, because the safety needs. And the police has a huge responsibility to enforce this directive with compassion and not in a very authoritarian way. And I think the Tamil Nadu police is doing it well. Strictness with compassion. And then we move to the self-esteem needs, which is about having a sense of belonging, our need to be loved by a near and dear, to have friendship, to relate to people. And then we have esteem needs, that I have achieved something in life. I am achieving something. That is a sense of self-esteem. And then we move to the higher needs, cognitive needs, the need to use your intellect fully, aesthetic needs, to realize a sense of beauty, to improve the way things appear and look, and self-actualization, which is the pyramid top, the peak of the pyramid, self-actualization, which is about self-improvement. So EQ thinking will put you on the track of meeting all these needs, right from the base level needs. Psychologists say even at the physiological level, there is a search for homeostasis, which is another word, technical word for equilibrium. And they say that our 5 senses are actually supported by a 6th sense, which they call equilibrium. So when we practice equilibrium thinking, we are actually balancing all our senses to achieve the optimum, even at the physical level, at the safety level, at the esteem level, and at the creativity level, and how to keep improving in all dimensions. So these are the 3 triangles which are a backdrop. EQ thinking, in this sense, is a new paradigm, is a new pattern of thought, because it's the first time you're combining, as I said, the positive with the negative. Till now, the world thought that positive thinking is the ultimate. But do you know that Norman Vincent Peale, after writing his very influential book, The Power of Positive Thinking, he sent it to several publishers. It was rejected by as many as 80. And then he threw it into the fire. And his wife, seeing his work going up in flames, because he forbade her from touching it with her hands, she took fire tongs and took out the burning manuscript, extinguished it, put it in a basket, and later sent it to a publisher, and then it made publishing history. So even the author did not practice positive thinking in a difficult circumstance where he was rejected. So many people on this conference right now would be worried about their job situation. The employer would be worried how to retain so many employees on the payroll without work. And the employee would be worried, how do I look after my family? How do I look after myself? So I do not tell people to conquer your fears. I say respect your fears and learn to overcome the irrational fears. So EQ thinking enables us to distinguish between the real fears and the irrational fears, and to take action on the real fears. So EQ thinking is good for enhancing our physical or constitutional equilibrium, our holistic health. Health is not only about physical health. All our organs may be fine, but our mind may be completely upset by many things. There are people who are smiling on the outside, but they have a huge fire burning within them. And this affects productivity, creativity, balanced decision making. So EQ thinking will improve productivity. I will give you some case studies how it improved productivity. It will improve balanced decision making or equilibrium decision making. While on the backstroke, you deal with stress, anger, and all other human negativity. It is not as if you're focusing on negativity, but it's like you switch on the light and the darkness goes away. It is not as if you drive the darkness out and then the light comes in. So when it comes to the human mind, it is like switching on a light. It is not like those who are experts in meditation, they say that if a glass is too full, you cannot teach it anything. And if a person is too full of his own ideas, he cannot. But it is not like a glass being emptied, but it is more like a light being switched on in our mind. It is mindware. It's not software. It is mindware based on changing our inner conditioning. So of the 3,333 Philippisms that I have written, thanks to this thought process over the last 10 years, I have written one which says that we are designed for success. The human being is designed for success, but we are programmed for failure. We are programmed for stress. We are programmed for conflict. And therefore, what needs to change is not our physical being, but our programming. So now you have, for the first time in your hand, a binary programming language, which is not based on 0, 1, but the alpha words, yes, no. Right from the time each of us is in the mother's womb, this programming language is working, yes, no. Should I attend this seminar? Will I learn something new? So the answer will come from your subconscious, yes, no. If it's no, you wouldn't like to attend. Sometimes it may be a weak yes, and as you come near the hour to which you are to log on, you'll say, okay, I got something better to do. And so the binary programming language is so simple, it can be taught to children. It can be taught to professors, and they will not understand how profound it is. So it is a completely simple process, but it is on the side of complexity. As Einstein said, any fool can make something simple look complex, but it takes a work of genius to make the complex simple. And equilibrium thinking is simplicity on that side of complexity. So it is a thought process that not only removes the stumbling blocks, but turns the stumbling blocks of our lives, our own weaknesses, into building blocks of success. Now, till now, the existing models are stressful, wasteful, and works in fits and starts. Positive thinking itself works in fits and starts. You can be positive when the circumstances are good around you. When business is good, when, the entire atmosphere, ambience is good, it's fine. You feel good. But the moment the environment becomes negative, as it has now happened around the world, then you would go into a nosedive at the thought level. And so that's why the Nash equilibrium, you would have heard of John Nash. The movie was made about him, famous movie, Oscar award-winning movie called The Beautiful Mind. He was himself schizophrenic, but he was brilliant. And he came up with this Nash equilibrium, which translated into words like be at it, beat it, as I have done. It means dare, collaborate. Dare means you fight for some time, you challenge. And for some time, you are in that mode. And then you change to collaboration. This is how nations relate to each other, like India and Pakistan, India and China, China and USA, even between sports teams, between chess players, collaborate for some time, then you challenge. So that's even within a home, within a family. So this is the natural thing, and is the basis of game theory, the Nash model. But the Nash model is wasteful, it's stressful, it works in fits and starts. And we need a more holistic model. And I present to you, ladies and gentlemen, EQ thinking as a holistic model. Now you can also think about lateral thinking as an alternative, lateral thinking or out of the box thinking by De Bono. Now as a police officer, I know that criminals tend to use lateral thinking more than people for legitimate activity. I'm not saying it's totally bad, but you say the 9/11 attack on the Twin Towers is one of the greatest instances in history of lateral thinking, where they use your domestic fliers, carriers, your fuel, and attack your targets. So lateral thinking itself, unless it's combined with ethics, it can be dangerous. And that is why we need to put the out-of-the-box thinking within the circle of ethics. EQ thinking puts out-of-the-box thinking within the circle of ethics. And decisions are taken in a split second. But the inputs that go into decision making are made on a 24/7 basis. That means you need a thought process which works 24/7. Even when you're sleeping, your subconscious should be processing, programming in that pattern. So you need something which is very simple. So simple a child can practice it. So today morning, a youngster said that, sir, I want to teach this equilibrium thinking to kindergarten children. Can I? So I told him, yes, of course you can. And I have the curriculum right away. And it can be taught to children. And even Einstein said, unless you can explain your concept to a 6-year-old, you have not even understood it. And this has been taught by psychologists. I think one of them is registered even for this seminar. She taught her 6th standard niece, who was phobic of being alone in the dark. And it affected her academics, it affected her relationships. She was scared to be alone, as many children are. Why children, even adults? And then this psychologist found that all the usual psychological tools are too complex, and she taught the child, be bold, beat fear, and asked the child to practice it as her self-talk. And later on, the child went on to be able to cycle out to shops in the dark and to even do well, even on a TV show and so on. So there are many instances of people having breakthroughs at the personal level and at corporate levels. So it is a new key to deal with boredom, stress, uncertainty, fears. All these are, the fallout of the current pandemic. It is a new thought process for better, more insightful decision-making and greater creativity. So Shad Helmstetter devoted his entire life to the study of self-talk. And he found that his wife eavesdropping on his self-talk, or even used to self-write that I need to lose weight. So when he says, I need to lose weight, that is his self-talk. And he calls it self-write. But he says the more precise the self-talk is, the more effective it is. And it cannot be more precise than just 2 monosyllables, be and beat. So the programming creates beliefs, beliefs create attitudes, he says. Attitudes creates emotions or feelings, feelings determine actions, action create results. Now, normal training by many of the corporate honchos, even those who are on this seminar, you would find that there is a honeymoon effect. You will initially feel quite high with the hype at the end of the seminar, but after a couple of hours or even days, you would return to ground zero. And that is because the interventions are made at the level 5, actions or behavioral level. And therefore, there is no significant change in results, long-term results. But when there is a change at the subconscious level, which works, as I said, on the binary principle of yes, no, that is not discovered by me, that is discovered by psychologists, that the subconscious works on is a biocomputer, it's a supercomputer. It works 24/7. It never stops. And that is responsible for most of our creativity. So the programming languages changes at the subconscious level. When it comes to the behavioral level, there's a cascade effect. Engineers know what is the cascade effect. At the innermost level, the energy is less, but once it comes to the surface, there is a huge explosion in energy. So these tiny changes in thought process will result in massive changes in your energy levels. And you see, this is an anatomy of the world and our relationship with the world. The environmental pressures is the world around us. You see, now we are in a very negative situation or around the world. The environment is highly negative. I'm often thankful that due to the pandemic, the newspaper doesn't reach and I don't even have to read. All the 99% of news is negative. Because news works or news sells on the principle that if a dog bites a man, it's not news. But if a man bites a dog, it is news. And that's why if we do a lot of good deeds, that is never reported. But if a negative act, say a policeman misbehaved with X, it grabs the headline. And that's because the programming is being negative programming. Newspapers, media, I'm not blaming them. They have a job to do. But the programming of the entire world is negative at the subconscious inner core of the onion called the human mind. But through this programming language of be it, beat it, and connecting it with values of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, and self-control. 9 values which transcend the boundaries of faith and religion, which is the software needed for every human being. Ethics is good for business, and it will actually improve even your profitability. And these words like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, and self-control are spiritual and emotional intelligence encapsulated. That's why again we come back to the triangle. Physical, mind, and spirit all need to integrate in different proportions. And so the values get integrated into the subconscious. The subconscious self needs repetition. 2 weeks ago, my brother was saying that some of his colleagues who attended it in Australia, they said that this is too simplistic. But what I told him to tell them, and which I addressed last week, is that unless it's simple, it doesn't penetrate the subconscious self. And unless it is repeated, simple as it is, unless it's repeated, the subconscious self will not obey it. Napoleon Hill, who is one of the original thinkers on self-improvement, he's written the book Think Rich. He has stated very clearly, it's an unconscionable fact that the subconscious mind can understand and obey a command only after several repetitions. Only after several repetitions. And already we have been negatively programmed. From childhood, we hear more no's from those who are in charge of our upbringing, whether it be parents, whether it be teachers, elder siblings. We hear more no's and fewer yeses. For the proportion they say is 18 no's to 1 yes. And therefore, when you have to reprogram yourself, you have to use repetition. And it has to be very, very simple. So simple a child should be able to repeat it. And so through the repetition of be calm, beat anger, be loving, beat hatred, always complementary opposites, you penetrate the subconscious, and then it affects the thought process, thinking, thoughts. A habit of thought is attitude. The other day somebody wrote on Facebook that it's impossible to train attitudes. And I wrote back to him, it's not impossible, it's possible through EQ thinking to mold attitudes. And you know, worldwide training again is not effective because it's in the paradigm of knowledge first, skill next, attitude last. If at all it's there only namesake. But the ideal paradigm for training, which I implemented as a police trainer in police training in several stints that I spent as principal, as DIG, as IG of the academy, and tested with police trainees of various ranks, various cerebral capacities. I found that attitudes can be molded if the person himself takes the tool and uses. If I ask you to do it, you will not do it. But if you implement it within your mind, it starts working immediately. So your attitudes get transformed. And instead of being a frog which keeps on conforming to the internal, external negative environment and finds itself suddenly cooked as it adjusts its temperature degree by degree to the boiling water around it, if it is kept in a basin of water on a stove, and suddenly it's found cooked dead, we humans need to imitate the cow model, which is chewing on the cud 18 times, 18 yeses to 1 no. We reverse the order. That is meditation, anytime motivation. And then that further influences the next level, emotions. Now, Daniel Goleman coincidentally wrote this largest selling non-fiction book in history at the time, 1994. The year I discovered this full pattern, but I hadn't developed it fully into a tool. He wrote this book, Emotional Intelligence. American corporations have spent billions of dollars to find a way to enhance EQ because it is the key to profitability. It is the key to productivity. And Daniel Goleman hints of the impact on productivity if EQ is enhanced. But Stephen Covey gives this diagnosis in his book, The Greatness Habit. He said, I've survived the entire literature on emotional intelligence, but one thing I find is there is so little to show how you can enhance EQ. Now, EQ thinking, though it doesn't mean emotional quotient, it means equilibrium thinking. It actually enhances multiple quotients. It improves your spiritual intelligence because you connect with your spiritual core values of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, self-control, and wisdom. 10 digital fingers is a digital thought process. And these words themselves doesn't have to be translated even to a child. You don't have to tell a child what is love. You don't have to explain what is the meaning of self-control. Be self-controlled, beat anger. Be calm, beat stress. So this is the binary thought process. So, but Daniel Goleman said that it will improve the productivity, and that is a fact. When I did a training for 100 MBAs, you will find it mentioned in the endorsements on the website eqthinking.com. In the year 2001 in Liba, I did a training just like this, 1 hour. 1 hour normally cannot create much change, as many of the trainers present on this seminar would agree. Even days of training doesn't make a change. And the vice president said we had so many interventions by management experts, but there was no change in the performance. But after this 1 hour session, maybe half an hour, it extended beyond 1 hour. And then they had audio CD which they played to reinforce their learning. And he found that the total sales of Carvi, the company for whom I did that training, the total sales in the same market situation with no promotion drive, no advertisement drive, no incentives for sales, the total sales moved from 4 crores to 32 crores, an 800% improvement, a quantum jump. And that proves what Daniel Goleman says, that if you improve EQ, you'll improve productivity, you'll improve profitability. So in the next few years, when we need to improve the productivity of labor, of forces, this is a simple thought process that can be taught across all strata, up to heads of state. Heads of state need it. Look at the presidents of some of the most powerful countries in the world today. They look really phased. They look really stressed. They're not their normal self any longer. And there's been a massive blow to leadership morale across the world. So what would happen at the base level, at the lowest levels? So we need to have this shift of patterns, the shifting of patterns, I call it, not shifting of paradigms, which is more talked about than it really happens. But a shifting of patterns. We need to sift the old patterns and come out with new thought patterns, which will translate into better decision making and behavioral change. So EQ, I have summed up Daniel Goleman's concept in this very easy acronym for each of you to remember. SSMES. If you don't have SSMES, your life will be in a mess. What is SSMES? The first S stands for self-awareness. As Socrates said, the essence of knowledge is knowing yourself, but he did not define what is knowing yourself. EQ thinking defines it as knowing both your strengths and weaknesses. In positive thinking, you focus only on your strengths. Even if you do a SWOT analysis, as management trainees do, you don't know how to deal with weaknesses or deal with threats. You think of using strengths and opportunities. You neglect both weaknesses and threats. But here you become proactive. So self-awareness, aware equally of your strengths and weaknesses. Second, self-regulation. Daniel Goleman says there should be a continual inner dialogue. And that is why he says meditation is one of the ways to improve emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. So continuous thinking is basically meditation. Those of us who are good at worrying, and all of us are good at worrying, we are good at meditation, because worrying is basically thinking on the same thought again and again and again repeatedly. But instead of a negative thought, you now turn it into a positive positive and a negative negative thought. Negative negative is also positive. So we have a pattern which is plus plus followed by minus minus. An alternation is required for it to be a cyclical thought process. So S has mass, self-awareness, self-regulation. M stands for motivation. How to motivate workforces across the country, across the world to return to work after this lockdown. That is a huge challenge for governments, for entrepreneurs, for owners, captains of industry. How to motivate them to return to work. And so motivation, how to motivate students to return to their studies, to their normal schedules. How to motivate them to excel. So motivation itself is a huge subject. So S, self-awareness, self-regulation is the second S. M stands for motivation. E for empathy. How to feel the pain of the migrant workers. What is the conditions that they are suffering, that they are going through? And that is what motivated us in the Friends of Police and police personnel to every day reach 100, that's the least we could do, 100 grocery bundles of 10 essentials to 100 families so that it would feed a family of 4 for at least a week or 10 days. Every single day during this lockdown. Empathy. It is not something that we need to do, but it's something that empathy makes us do. And we're thankful for many of the people, even on this seminar, who have been sponsors for our kind of empathy. And the last SS stands for social skills, problem solving. As I mentioned earlier, problem identification, problem solution requires creative thinking, critical thinking combined with creative thinking. And so social skills is sensitivity, problem solving. A whole range of skills are involved in social skills, relationship skills, how to listen empathetically, how to ask questions, questioning skills. We introduced all this in the training of 100,000 police personnel and Friends of Police over the last 20 years, last 2 decades, with significant results through empirical, evaluation. So we have dealt with the onion of the human mind and its relationship with the environment. And if we do not have a powerful, simple, powerful tool, we will become victims, not victors. And we will be subject to huge tension, which our minds cannot handle. We have to be not thermometers, where the bulb continually reacts to the environment, negative environment and stresses. But we should be thermostats. We regulate ourselves. Self-regulation I mentioned, which Daniel Goleman emphasized as one of the top 5 components of emotional intelligence. And then even our hormones are also configured in terms of positive hormones, negative hormones. If you have positive hormones of the endorphins, you feel happy, you live longer. You find many people who have longevity, it is because I have a good attitude. And those who relate to people, they tend to live longer, not those with big bank balances. In fact, that cuts down because of the burden, the tensions, the worries. Then cortisol, it affects the arteries. It affects the entire cardiac system. It causes swelling of the arterial walls. It affects sleep. People cannot sleep unless they take some drugs. But EQ thinking is holistic medicine. That is why it was accepted by international doctors in Canada and America as an alternative holistic therapy. And they published my paper of empirical research validated by a clinical psychologist with 22 years when I was principal police training college in the early part of this century. They published it as an alternative holistic therapy. So we already said how it affects productivity and effectiveness. So if you don't have a tool to deal with the stress, negativity that is happening, which is very real, it will affect productivity, it will affect personal effectiveness, leadership effectiveness. When I was in the London School of Economics, I thought of this value process. The value creates competence. Mother Teresa did not go to Harvard Business School, and yet she managed 5,000 colleagues, sisters, of the poor, with no scandal, no scam over her whole lifetime. And there was a succession plan. And even today, the organization is working smoothly. What educated her? It was the value of love and service. Mahatma Gandhi, he was obsessed with the values of truth and non-violence. And so moral values became political weapons for the first time in history. And that inspired people like Martin Luther. And even contemporaries, even active today in different parts of the country. We know who they are. So the value is a seed that gives birth to a vision. And that produces passion, motivation, energy. Now what drives me is that obsession with excellence. So I keep trying to find a way to improve, to impact people, to change lives. Even if one person on this seminar feels that it has influenced him or her, I would be satisfied. So other day I asked a teacher who attended in 2 weeks in succession, I asked, what did you practice it? He said, yes, sir. I feel greatly refreshed as I practiced it. And that validated what I have been teaching. That EQ thinking is a self-renewal process. It's in your hands, your own mind, your own resources. The ATM is within you. And all these things are triggered: value, vision, passion, leading to strategies. Normal management parlance would take you, short-circuit you straight to strategies, relying on competencies, fulfilling the value. But here it is a complete cycle. Value itself is competence. And EQ thinking, how is it different? It's a bifocal binary approach. It's an integrated holistic approach. It combines the physical, the intellectual, the emotional, the spiritual. And is based on the best principles of human learning. What is the best principles of human learning? Why does Mr. Chandrasekharan or Mrs. Usha, the teacher, attend this again and again? Because even for such a simple concept like EQ thinking, you need repetition with gaps. At least 6 repetition with gaps if you have to learn even such a simple principle and process. That is the best principle of human learning. And you should be able to straight away practice it. There should be no gap between knowledge and application. That means it should be straight away moved into wisdom level. There's no point in accumulating knowledge. The less you know, but more you apply. That makes the difference. There is no gap between precept and practice, concept and experience. You start practicing it the moment you learn it. And it's something you can practice right through life. So again, as part of that paper that I wrote at the London School of Economics, I came up with this hypothesis of 3 indestructible elements in every human being. The human being is unique in all species. No one would disagree. And the image is the psycho-spiritual dimension, which, unlike Stephen Covey, it's not only principles. I've included everything psycho-spiritual: ideology, value system, beliefs, worldview, perception, self-esteem, philosophy, attitudes, character, conscience as a compass, vision. All these together is image. Not image as in the normal media sense. Here image is the soul of man, the psychology of man, the psycho-spiritual dimension. Image is who you are. It's not what we wear that defines us. It's not what we eat that defines us. It's not what we own that defines us. In that case, if that is what is defining us, we are living incomplete lives. But we are defined by who we are. So image is who we are. And performance is what we do. And that relies on capabilities, talents, skills. Each of you is uniquely talented, more than 10,000 other contemporaries right now. And that is why you are what you are today. We are what we are because of our strengths. We are not what we should be because of our weaknesses. So if we have to realize our full potential, we need to further leverage on our strengths and reduce, overcome, and even turn our weakness into a strength. So performance is what we do, substance is what we have. So we must not define ourselves but by what we have. Then we are in a upside down, topsy-turvy world of values. What we have drives what we are and what we do. No. The ideal paradigm or pattern is image over performance, performance over substance. IPS doesn't mean Indian Police Service. It's just a coincidence. But image is what we are. Performance is what we do. Substance is what we have. So if we want to improve our substance also, we need to make an input in what we are, even at the subconscious level, and that will have a cascade effect. And then the substance itself will improve. So even to improve economics of a country, we need to transform the image of people. The human resource is our greatest wealth. So education is the key, but education should not be on the basis of just multiplying knowledge. It should be the application of knowledge. It should be creating original ideas, being at the top of the pyramid of Bloom's taxonomy. So this is the perfect paradigm. Image over performance, performance over substance. Jim Rohn, another great self-improvement guru, a great writer and trainer. He says, be more, do more, have more, which is echoing what I'm saying. Be more, that is your image, who you are. Do more and have more. So we must not straight away short circuit to have more, but work first on image, and automatically a performance will improve. And that's what happened to those 100 sales team. Each of them applied this tool for a different issue. One of the sales team might have had a problem of being too shy, so wouldn't try again. But once she applied this tool, she said, okay, let me try again. After all, the other person is going to say one more no. And so the net result, her success rate improved. So once I did a training for direct recruit DYSPs, and one of them, I think, was doing very well now in the field. He came to me and said, sir, thank you for teaching me how to improve my success rate. It will not make you 100% successful, but it will only improve your success rate. He correctly understood. All of us have a failure rate and a success rate. There is an alternation of failure and success. That is our pattern. But as we practice this, it improves our well-being, our success rate. So image-driven individuals are leaders in pursuit of excellence. Performance-driven individuals are managers in pursuit of success. And substance-driven individuals are profiteers in search of excess. Right in the middle of this pandemic, there are profiteers. Today in my own department, the Civil Supplies CID, they arrested people who were transporting ration rice in this worldwide crisis. Imagine doing that, even though we had sent out a warning that most deterrent action will be taken even if a single grain is smuggled during this season of great crisis, great need, where food is, what everyone needs. So to deal with anger, you need an anchor. So be at it, beat is a source code. From that you derive the programming language. Be calm, beat anger. Be cool, beat stress. So it's always according to your PIN. To access an ATM, you need a PIN. Your PIN is your personally identified negatives. If you identify your negatives, they become nodal points of growth. If I identify it, you will point 10 fingers back at me. And therefore, you identify your PIN at the end of this workshop. What are my weaknesses? What are the areas I need to change? And this becomes a powerful tool of self-change. As T.N. Seshan endorsed this concept many years ago, that this is a powerful tool for self-change. And so to impact the world, we need to start at one corner, and that is ourselves. And by using these two verbs, be and beat. Now, till now in psychology, they were dealing either with negative psychology, and then Martin Seligman started positive psychology movement in the American Psychology Association in the 80s. And he said we should teach people how to be happy. But what is effective is combining both positive psychology and negative psychology. Not negative psychology, but negative psychology. And then you will create a happier world, a healthier world, more holistic well-being, more balanced people, more creative people. So Goethe, the great philosopher, says, treat a person as he is, and she will remain as he or she is. Treat him as he can be, and he will become what he or she can be. And therefore, our potential is better realized as we use this continually. This is the ATM, which means anytime meditation. And so if you practice this for 21 days, 21 days is required to change the programming language. I am 58 years of programming negatively. And only after I started this research, my programming, I became aware of my programming language, my self-talk. And after I suffered 2 near-death experiences, this tool enabled me to overcome the trauma. I'm the only person on the planet, for your information, to survive 2 near-deaths, both unique circumstances. The world's first human bomb or a woman bomb, assassination of Rajiv Gandhi. Imagine the kind of stress, negativity I was subjected to. Relatives would say, you must have beaten somebody, that's why your hand is fractured. Or you must have done something wrong and that's why he got injured. They don't see why I survived, that I must have done something good to have survived in such a great tragedy. And my daughter was just born 10 days before that. And after that, imagine at the earliest point in the career of a young IPS officer, I suffer the greatest setback. On my watch, a great leader is assassinated. But within a year or two, I could bounce back. It was not easy, it was difficult, but this thought process helped me at the subconscious and conscious levels. Within a year or two, I came up from that very incident, a youngster who gave me water as I lay injured with hundreds of steel pellets. And I asked him, Tambi, un per enna? I really felt this divine love towards him. And he said, my name is the best man, Purushottaman, the best man. That inspired me. And within another year, I addressed the Chief Minister and said, Madam, I've started the Friends of Police movement in Ramnad district. This has transformed the rapport between police and people. It has turned the negativity into positivity. We have thousands of young people, even from all minorities, trooping into police stations saying we want to be FOP, Friends of Police. We have letters from across the country reading the news in the dailies that we too want to serve our nation. Give us an opportunity to be Friends of Police. In fact, this FOP concept led to the Aam Aadmi concept. When I was delivering a show, VOP, I spoke about the concept of VOP. The brain becomes a dynamo, it keeps on churning energy. You know, dynamo, you all have used dynamos on your cycle. Every movement creates energy for light. The moment it stops, the energy generation stops. So the brain becomes a dynamo between positive wiring and the negative wiring. And therefore, whatever job I am posted in, I'm generating new ideas. When I was posted as IG Social Justice, I created the world's largest, longest tea party movement, social justice tea parties, in 40,000 villages, and tea was served to 1 million people along with these concepts of EQ thinking in simple Tamil. So it could be understood by grassroots level people in tea shops where discrimination was being practiced on grounds of caste. So it creates change at even the societal level, political level. So when we start thinking in this thought process, it will lead us to take actions. We'll become problem solvers, proactive problem solvers. So Stephen Covey says, our tendency is to run with our strengths and leave weaknesses undeveloped. This is a comment on positive thinking. Sometimes that's fine, but when we can organize to make those weaknesses irrelevant through the strength of others, but most of the time it isn't fine, because the full utilization of our capacities requires overcoming those weaknesses. So he's hinting that we need to work on double entry. So just like in accounting, you work not only on income, but also on reducing expenditure. So reducing expenditure is reducing your tension, reducing your worry, reducing your anger, your fear levels, subconscious fear levels, nervousness, low self-esteem, not trying hard enough. Be at it means continually trying, and each time trying to be better. So as I mentioned, those 100 members of that sales team of Karvi, each of them applied it for a different reason. One person might have had a relationship problem with the opposite sex and felt let down because of a breakdown. And then he used this thought process. to restore his equilibrium quickly. So it doesn't mean that you can practice and stop practicing it. It is a lifelong practice. And to three analogies, the MD of Sundaram, who once asked me to do training for the entire staff of Sundaram Hospital, said that your three analogies in your early paper, paper I wrote 20 years ago, he says is enough for anyone to understand it. One is the concept of income and expenditure. You need to work both on increasing income and reducing expenditure. Second, seeding and DVD. See, when you plant a seed, which grows faster? What you sow in the ground and water every day, or what you did not sow? Anyone can answer? If you can. You can unmute for a second if you like.
What you did not sow, the weeds.
The weeds. Who is answering?
Shivkumar Bellan, sir. Shivkumar Bellan, your friend.
Yeah. I think you might have heard me before too, huh?
No. I was very patiently listening to you. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Shiva Kumar Bellan is himself a corporate trainer. He's a brand marketing expert whom I consult for my book on Philippisms.
Thank you.
Seeding should go simultaneously with DVD. Even in the backyard of your mind, which means your subconscious, your negative thoughts are growing, even without your being aware. So you need to consciously first apply this for 21 days, because when they did a research with astronauts or cosmonauts in the 1950s, they found that for them to adjust to the zero gravity environment, they had to wear special goggles, and which made them disoriented. But when they continued to wear it for 21 days, on the 21st day, the brain reprogrammed itself and they began to be in balance. So that's why we need a 21-day program for you to fully implement it. You can easily practice it on your own. But as somebody I taught even 20 years ago, he said, sir, I remember you telling me this, but I did not practice it. But now I realize its importance. So it requires, even such a simple concept requires several repetitions. And it also requires some hand-holding. So just like you use a plumb line to check whether a wall is built straight, a construction is right, we need to use the plumb line of values using B and beat to check whether our thoughts are right, whether our emotions are in the right direction. Our communication, which most of the time goes awry, even in homes, most of the arguments are because of a word that came across amiss or was misunderstood, and then not using our talent fully and not being focused. So our time is also lost in many distractors. So self-management is the secret of management. Shad Helmstetter says that you can go to Harvard Business School and learn about material management, financial management, every type of management, but you will not learn about self-management. And self-management is the key. And the management of self requires the using of self-talk. And EQ thinking is the world's first binary programming language for self-talk. So the plumb line is also used to check against the negatives which inhibit, which limit. I wrote a Philippism the other day. The only thing limited about you is that you are a limited edition. Rather, you are one of a kind. Each one of you is one of a kind. And you have a unique talent, a unique mission, a unique purpose. So whatever is inhibiting us from fully realizing that purpose in all dimensions, spiritual, intellectual, emotional, relational, and the physical, we need to deal with it. And beat it helps. So there are 5 methods of practicing EQ thinking, summed up in the simple word vacuum, spelled differently. V for visual. Visualize yourself now, choosing your pin. What is your pin? If your pin is anger, visualize yourself being calm, beating anger. You don't have to close your eyes. This is, having monastic detachment in corporate settings. That means you don't have to have a guru. You are your own guru. You are your own psychiatrist. You are your own psychologist. You are your own counselor. And you have the resources within you. So visualize yourself being calm, beating anger. Auditory, that means you If you want, initially you can verbalize it loudly, but afterwards it becomes your inner self-talk. Each of you is actually practicing self-talk at the rate of some 100 words per minute without you being fully aware. And 80% of that till now is negative. And that is the source of disease. That's the source of conflict. That is the source of stress. But once we convert it almost to 100%, though 100% is only a goal, is always going to be only a goal. When we practice be at it, beat it, you're increasing all these positives and you're negating all the negatives. So auditory, kinesthetic is, this is the third analogy which that Sundaram MD said makes it very clear. And that is, the first was about, income expenditure, second about seeding and deweeding. Third is how the heart, gets oxygenated blood. It pumps out deoxygenated blood, or the other way around, whichever it is. Deoxygenated blood comes in, pumps out oxygenated blood. So there is a rhythm. And that's why when I gave this thought process in a CD to the President, Dr. Abdul Kalam, he said, I listened to it immediately. After 15 minutes, he said, there's a very good thought process, excellent thought process. I said, why do you say it's excellent? He said, in life, there is a rhythm. And in your thought process, there is that rhythm of positive and negative, negative. So you can practice it in physical ways. Kinesthetic means, is a term borrowed from neuro-linguistic programming. Kinesthetic means you do and learn. 80% of what we do, we learn, as against the lower percentage of what we see and hear. So doing and learning. So what is the doing thing which is in the same pattern? This is the third analogy I was talking about. You breathe in oxygen, you breathe out carbon dioxide. This is also exactly the pattern. Be at it, beat it. Indians have been teaching breathing as a way of relaxation, but nobody has decoded the breathing as be at it, beat it. Now that you understand that it's a concept, breathing in is be at it. You cannot just breathe once and live. Nobody is able to breathe once or twice and live. You have to continually do it. That is be at it. So you have to continually keep doing the positive. That is be at it. Be positive. And you have to continually alternate by breathing out the carbon dioxide, what is used up. Even our good gets used up. So we need renewal. We need renewal. And so the kinesthetic is you practice breathing in, be calm, you breathe in calmness. Breathe out, you breathe out tension, fear, worry, stress. An industrialist in Tengasi read about it in the papers when I was DIG around 2004. He was under a lot of stress because his business was taking a downturn. And he said, I just practiced this breathing process which you told me, be relaxed, beat fear, be confident, beat tension, in different, verbs along with an adjective, complementary opposites. And he said he immediately felt relief. So it gives you immediate release. And you is understand. Even if you understand it is a new pattern of thought, it will improve your decision making. It will improve your relationships. So even those who have just understood it, it begins to work in your mind at a subconscious level. And the fifth is modeling. Modeling, my 10-day child, over the months that I was wearing a splint as I was lying injured in the bed with her, doctor told me keep, flexing your fractured hand. I was wearing a splint, I was doing it. And I found my daughter also doing this after a few weeks. I had not told her, she didn't need to, but it is modeling. So we unconsciously pick up cues from all the people we are watching. Now here you do conscious modeling. You look at a guy who is good at decision making, you model yourself on him. You become a better decision making. Neuro-linguistic programming relies on modeling greatly. You look at a guy who's good at batting, a cricketer who's good at batting, you pick up his cues, see how he walks, see how his lifestyle, imitate him, and you may get better because in certain aspects you're better. That is modeling. So there are 5 methods of practicing it. So feedback, it has helped people overcome die-hard habits like smoking, overcome family problems, nervous breakdowns, anger, impulsiveness. So a paper was published, a study of 137 women sub-inspectors around 99-2000 when I was principal police training college. And you see that all of them reported significant improvement from the tune of frequency of 61% to 90% in terms of various parameters like endurance, motivation, happiness level, reduction of stress, and so on. So ET or equilibrium thinking creates attitudinal change in all realms of domains of self-management: spiritual, emotional, intellectual, social, familial, self-development, work, interpersonal relations. So it takes only a simple key to open even the most complex lock. Our mind is a very complex lock, but it requires only a simple key of a binary self-programming talk. It enables the locking of destructive human decision-making potential and unlocks the creative part simultaneously. So the Greek expression entelike means unlocking. So a key can be used not only for locking, but unlocking also. Unlocking the creative, locking the destructive. Both exist in each one of us. We can be destructive, we can be creative. So this key will enable us to do this dual work of locking the destructive and unlocking the creative simultaneously. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation. Anyone has questions, queries, you can use the chat window preferably.
Phillip, sir, can I share my learnings from the session?
Yeah, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, this is Shivkumar Bellan.
Yeah, Shivkumar. Yes.
Bellan. First of all, thanks a ton to Dr. Prateep Phillip for such an enlightening talk. I know that doing a webinar is very difficult, because for people who are more used to live talk shows, in a webinar it's very difficult to assess even the body language of the audience. But in spite of that, I didn't know how that 1 hour went. And I must say that, all my, sheets of paper are over by taking notes. And some of the key learnings are which I learned is that when you mentioned BEd and BTech, though reading so many books, I never knew an yes and or no have such a great impact on your decision making. As you rightly pointed out, many times you keep on telling yes, but the time when you want to do that work, you procrastinate and you go for a no. So in this case, I just want to know from you, sir. So many times you would have planned something. As Indians, we are very good planners. And when it comes to execution, we are very poor executors. So when you, using your concept, when we are planning something and telling, okay, this is the work I'm going to do. Yes, yes, yes. But when it actually coming to do the work, we say a big no. We procrastinate things. At this point of time, how do we rectify this?
Yeah, this procrastination is, India is a nation of procrastinators. And we are, as you said, very good planners, but poor implementers. But post-COVID, if this programming is changed, be proactive, beat procrastination, be determined, beat vacillation. You put it in simple vernacular language also. And it can be taught to millions of people. The national character can change within a few days, weeks, or years. And in 21 days, if each of us become better implementers, we are contributing to the nation.
Okay.
So as a police officer, whatever change I want to implement in the police, I did not procrastinate. I said the earlier I start, the better. If I had waited till I became IG, when it would have been more easy, comfortable for me, I would have faced resistance and threats within my, in terms of my career. But I said, I think I have been saved for a divine purpose. So I said that better people than me have died in that assassination. And I have this opportunity of trying to humanize the police. Okay. So I grabbed the first opportunity I got. Okay. And in my first district, almost I implemented it. Okay. So every job, as soon as I joined, I think the programming language has changed. So if you change your programming language, you become a better decision maker, more prompt decision maker. You will procrastinate less. I'm not saying you will not absolutely procrastinate, but you will be, be able to take better decisions, more balanced decisions, more holistic decisions. There was a question from Mr. Paulson, I think, which I saw. You asked, what does the U stand for in vacuum? U stands for understand. Even if you understand it as a concept, it will expand your thinking, your mind, improve your life. So U is itself a method of practicing it.
From Vanya Grant.
Beg your pardon?
So there is a question from Vanya Grant in the chat. I'll just quickly read it.
Yeah.
So asking how is the EQ model of image, performance, and substance different from Stephen Conway?
Stephen Covey, huh? Stephen Covey. You were talking about Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey.
Yeah, Stephen Covey's see do get model. How is it different?
It is different because this is the first time we are bringing in all the dimensions, the physical, the intellectual, the emotional, the spiritual, the psychological, the rational, the logical, everything. This is a framework which includes all A to Z of the human psyche. In the Stephen Covey models, he just focused on principles. So principles, of course, are very powerful. He says principles will give you power, it will give you security, it will give you freedom. So, which is definitely part of the truth. But in the image performance substance model, you can apply it to business, hardcore business, you can apply it to governance, you can apply it to self-management. So this led me actually to create a new subject for the world, which will create better economic development for the whole world, Excenomics. You focus on excellence, all these things will be added unto you. Now the economics is training you, conditioning you, and programming you in a different way, saying focus on substance. So what that would lead to is people will get into scams, scandals, corruption, and all its ills, as has been happening in the last so many hundreds of years. So when people realize that actually ethics is good for my physical health, I'll have less physical problems. It is good for my purse. It'll help me experience more abundance. Not only will my need be met, but I'll be able to help others. So then, people will not just pay lip service to principles and ethics. So Excenomics is based on that, this image performance substance. If the whole nation is taught that pursue excellence, right from a sweeper, a mason, a policeman, a teacher, like, Japan has implemented it to a great extent because Demings introduced quality standards after the Holocaust of the Second World War. And started focusing on excellence. But of course, it is a partial excellence. And that has its own, drawbacks. I hope I answered your question, Vanya Grant, in brief.
Yeah.
This is Chandrasekhar. Sorry, this is Chandrasekhar.
On this question, what you told, you told that it includes ethics and values and everything. So, but it is also subjective, depending on the worldview of every individual, right?
Now, whatever be your worldview, that has an impact. So, whatever be your worldview, suppose your worldview is money is the only thing that matters in life, then that will have its own impact. So, image has a tendency to transcend performance and substance. So, what we are, invest in what we are, we'll improve what we do. When you improve what we do, we'll improve what we have. That is the correlation I've drawn. Benjamin Moses, Levi Moses of Switzerland, from Switzerland, a good friend, he has asked a question that how do we migrate this to the Indian educational system? Actually, it's not only just the Indian educational system, even in Harvard, it's based on substance first. Everywhere, what do they first talk about? Bottom line. But even your bottom line will be better if you first focus on the image, the principles, the values. It is good for, we are made like that. We are configured like that. We are not just body for consumption, but we are minds, we are souls, we are emotions, we are relationships. And therefore, the worldwide education, that's why there was a thing showing how everything has changed in 300 years. But even today, education, the classroom is a classroom. 30 students sitting there. and they are taking notes, whether it is in a more sophisticated classroom in the West or in a small village in India. So the thought process worldwide has to change. And of course, Indian education system, there is a bigger burden, bigger challenges. We have to beat it. And entrepreneurs should come forward who will adopt this thought process as the core and start schools and colleges. And once it shows that it is producing a different breed of leaders, a different breed of innovators. So if you actually introduce EQ thinking kindergarten level, you are sowing the seed of greatness. Dennis Waitley says, sowing the seeds of greatness. And also removing the weeds of mediocrity and evil from the young child. And so longitudinally over the longest window of opportunity, which is education, which no species except human being has. Imagine over a longitudinal period of 15 years, what is the impact, the transformation in individuals as it is achieved. So it has to be migrated to the Indian educational system and worldwide education system. It's a process. We start something somewhere, and as we persist, be at it, we will definitely beat it. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. We filled in the feedback form. Does that ensure that we would be aware of your future endeavors of such kind so that we can join in a little faster or are more aware?
Thank you. Your good name?
I am Jayashri.
Yes, Jayashree, thank you for your feedback. And definitely, we actually, unlike other webinars, we are allowing participants to come back. Because I said you need 6 repetitions to actually fully absorb even such a simple concept like be at it, beat it. Just monosyllables. You don't have to remember anything else. No need for Bloom's taxonomy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or any of the other things. Just 2 words, be, beat. And this tool you have to use. So when can you start practicing it? Let me ask a diagnostic question to you. All of you, when can you start practicing it?
I think it is an immediate action item, right?
Yeah, that's an easy kind of thing.
Yes, it is. You start now. And till when can you practice it?
Lifelong.
Yes, till your last breath. It's never
But
too late.
I have a suggestion on this.
Yeah.
You talked about excellence. And if you add the typical example of it in which you go on a stepwise towards the growth. I mean, excellence is not stable, one step at a time, and thereby keep.
Yeah, that's right. It is a growth process. So you make an initiation.
Right.
Once you start practicing these binary commands,
Yes.
you are on the path.
Yes.
And you do not know what stage you will have, what kind of breakthroughs. Nobody can predict because each of us is unique.
It also goes with the maturity level of the individual, right?
No, that's why I said even the average human mind is a supercomputer. But you sabotage yourself by saying, suppose you say, I got a lot of work to do. You're stressing yourself.
Yes. Good.
Instead, you say, I am getting to do it. It's change in the language will create a complete difference. So
Right.
what we say to ourselves can either trigger growth towards excellence or sabotage our growth.
Phillip sir, do you suggest any positive affirmations till this becomes a practice? You say be at it, beat it. As you said, it has to be repeated. To get into this, to make this into a mode of practice, do you recommend any positive affirmations like on a daily basis, like just like the beautiful thing you told, anytime meditation? Even when you do an anytime meditation, is there any positive affirmations where you can give like a auto suggestion to you yourself?
Yeah, this is different from auto suggestion. Emily Cohn did valuable research on auto suggestion.
Okay.
And that has led to books like The Secret, which is based on this kind of auto suggestion. Now, the book Secret can completely lead you to a delusionary path. I know my daughter's classmate who was got into a prestigious law school. He read the book and he said, I want to actually follow my passion of music. I don't know what happened after that. He left that prestigious law school and went to some other part of the world to join some rock band. So Here it is not positive affirmations. It is an alternation of positive affirmation, be calm, with beat anger. It is day and night. It is not day alone. So there is an alternation in nature of the same kind, day, night, up, down. So this is a pattern for a cyclical process. So be healthy, beat sickness. Now all of you join together and say, be healthy. Be healthy. You can switch on your mics.
Be healthy.
Be healthy.
Be healthy.
Sickness.
Be healthy.
Beat sickness.
Beat sickness.
Be
Beat sickness.
Sickness.
Be healthy.
Be healthy.
Beat
Beat sickness.
Beat sickness.
Be healthy, be sickness.
Beat sickness. Be healthy.
Be healthy.
Sickness.
Beat sickness.
So this is psychoneuroimmunology, an interdisciplinary discipline, has enough research to show that what you speak to yourself affects your health. 80% of disease is psychosomatic.
Correct.
So when the government is saying start taking so many medicines, vitamin C, A, B, C, D and all that for improving immunity, along with that, you also need to improve your programming language.
True.
Use this binary thought process, be healthy, beat sickness. Basically the pattern is be strong, beat weakness. You can replace the adjectives with whatever is appropriate for you. Be bold, beat fear. Now what is happening throughout the world? There is a fear that whether I can be the next victim. Today if it is 2,003,405, everyone has a fear whether he'll become 406th, 407th. So what is the command you have to give to overcome it? Be bold, beat fear. So repetition is required because till now you have heard millions of negative negations in your life, knowingly or unknowingly. And so it has cut your growth, sabotaged your growth. Now you are taking consciously, one of the principles of EQ thinking is onus on us, onus on us. It's not the responsibility of your spouse or your children or your boss. Onus is on us. So I take charge of myself and I give myself command. That's why I don't use the word auto-suggestion. This is the first time in psychology we use the word command. Only you, Shiva, Kumar, Belan have authority over you. Not your spouse. Of course, you may give a lot of value to your spouse's commands. And so what you say to yourself influences you more than anybody else. So you command yourself, and in a period of 21 days, you will notice, not only you, people in your inner circle will notice significant change. One lady was very angry. She started showing signs of calmness. So her husband, who was a policeman, said, "What happened to you?" He said, no, one DIG came and taught us this, be calm, beat anger, in Tamil. And now I practice this and I've overcome anger. Similarly, a doctorate in communication from Germany, though he was a professor of theology, was so angry he used to get up in the middle of a beam. He heard my CD, he practiced it, and he overcame anger. So different people have anger depending on issues. Depending on your issues, you will have breakthroughs, emotional breakthroughs, decisional breakthroughs, relational breakthroughs. So,
Sir, I remember a word which you told me almost say 2-3 years back when we first met. When I told, sir, I have not become a billionaire. No. You said you might not be a billionaire, but you're a goodwill billionaire. I think that one single word has a very profound effect on the type of things which I'm doing right now in terms of social initiatives. Today in your session with the Goeth, when you read that quote, which I could correlate the words which you told me 3 years back. That's one word you told, goodwill billionaire, which has, even words can have such positive effects on a person, So, which was a great learning, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for the session.
Thank you. I think I'll have to conclude now.
Yes.
Cross the budgeted time, and everyone needs to return to their normal life away from EQ thinking. But I hope all of you will come back and give us feedback also.
Definitely.
Thanks to all of you for spending your time. People as far away from Texas have joined. God bless you. Thank you.